Hey guys, this is Austin. This is a MacBook Air. So you may have seen our video last year where we took a look at why Apple is still selling this laptop in 2017. And of course, they're still selling it in Apple stores today. But my question is, does it actually make sense to pick up a used model? So this is the 2014 11-inch MacBook Air. And fun fact, this is actually the exact laptop that I reviewed almost 5 years ago. Thankfully, video quality has improved a lot since then. The good thing is the design actually doesn't feel all that out of date. So you're still getting this solid aluminum chassis, which feels good even by today's standards. And you have to remember, the MacBook Air was kind of the first Ultrabook. So even though it might not be quite as thin as something like the 12-inch MacBook, it's still going to be much thinner than the vast majority of laptops out there. And again, it's like $500 on eBay right now. So where you can really tell the MacBook Air's age is with the display. So the 11-inch Air is rocking a 1366 by 768 panel. Definitely not Retina quality, and it's really not great even on a small display like this. The bigger issue though is that it's going to be a low quality TN panel. Color's not going to be great, there's very little contrast, and the viewing angles leave a lot to be desired. Honestly, it kind of feels like a budget $200, maybe $300 laptop that you would buy today. Now don't get me wrong, it's not exactly going to be a deal breaker, but when you're picking up a MacBook Air in 2018, the low quality screen is definitely something that you're going to notice. Thankfully though, something that hasn't really aged too much are the rest of the inputs. The keyboard is still better than stuff like the 12-inch MacBook in my opinion. It's got good spacing, it's still going to be backlit, and the trackpad is also better than most Windows laptops even today. So the only real difference between this and a newer MacBook trackpad is going to be that you actually can't click on the front as opposed to the Force Touch that you get on the new MacBook Pros, and the idea that it's just going to be a little bit smaller. Besides that, you're getting every little bit of the functionality and every bit of the smoothness that you would expect from a MacBook. Take a look at the specs, and it's actually not going to be all that much out of date. So this is going to be powered by a 4th generation Haswell processor. Most of the MacBooks had Core i5s, although I did opt to upgrade this one to the i7, mostly because I actually used to do video editing on this. But for the most part, the performance is really not going to be too far off a modern laptop in more normal, less super demanding tasks, like don't try to game on your MacBook Air, or don't try to do 8K HDR RAW editing on it. But besides that, for normal stuff, it doesn't really feel that much slower. One thing you should keep in mind is that a lot of these MacBook Airs only had 4 gigs of RAM. It's going to be usable, but if you're able to find a model with 8 gigs out of the box, it's going to make things a lot better. Something that I did not do to my MacBook Air when I ordered it back in 2014 is upgrade the SSD. This guy only has 128 gigs of storage. Now to be fair, it is going to be a PCIe SSD, and it's actually going to be faster than a lot of SATA drives, pretty much any SATA drive that you find today. But with only 128 gigs of storage, you better have lots of external hard drives around if you want to do anything serious. Now believe it or not, I actually used to edit pretty much all of my videos when I was on the go on the MacBook Air. But things have definitely changed since then. So instead of shooting on a DSLR at 1080p with a fairly low bitrate, instead now we shoot everything in 4K, we're shooting primarily in ProRes, and it's going to require a lot more data and a lot more processing power to work with. However, I actually switched over to Final Cut since then, which is fairly well optimized, and because we shoot in ProRes, I think the MacBook Air might actually stand a decent chance of being able to edit, although it might also horribly crash and burn. So to give you an idea of what we're working with here, this is pretty much all going to be 4K ProRes. So some of it was shot on a Red and some of it was shot on Sony FS7, but for the most part it's going to be fairly straightforward. And the good thing is, Final Cut actually does work with ProRes pretty well. Now if we actually open up the project, what we're going to see here is that the performance really is not going to be bad. Now mind you, this has been rendered, but if I turn up the volume here. For the best-selling game console of all time, the next closest is the Nintendo DS. So especially in the early, it's simple and straightforward. That's not bad at all. Now this is an already edited timeline, but if we want to go in and do some color correction to simulate what it would be like if we actually didn't have everything rendered and have it all ready, start playing back here, go to full screen. It's dropping a couple frames at full quality, but I would say for the most part this is going to be usable. Where it's really going to slow down though is when it comes to actually exporting. So no, you probably shouldn't go out and buy yourself a MacBook Air just to go do some video editing. But especially when you're working with stuff like Final Cut as well as ProRes, which are very well optimized to work on this kind of hardware, it actually is going to be usable. Although I probably won't bring this guy back out of mothballs to edit all of our videos again. One of the nice things about going with a 2014 model of the MacBook Air versus an earlier one is that it does have the Intel Haswell processors. Now this was the last time that there was a huge leap in battery life. So when this thing was brand new, it was able to get between 6 to 7 hours on a charge. Now today, obviously with a slightly older battery, it's a little bit closer to say 4.5. But considering this is an older laptop with not a particularly user replaceable battery, having that kind of life in an older laptop is going to be super helpful. And of course, because this was a premium laptop at the time, it does have 802.11 AC Wi-Fi. No Ethernet jack, because it's an Apple MacBook from after 2011, 2012, whenever they dropped it. But you're still gonna have fast Wi-Fi, which again, is gonna be pretty much the same as a current MacBook today. There are two ways of looking at this. So on one hand, it's kind of crazy that a nearly 5-year-old laptop has held almost half its resale value, but on the other hand, it kind of makes sense. When you compare this to something like a brand new 13-inch MacBook Pro, which is way over double the price, you've got a lot of the same features besides the garbage town display, but if you're using it for lighter stuff, you're really not gonna notice a huge difference. However, one of the things you are going to be losing are those newer processors, the better battery life. But I think for most people, especially considering the price, it's actually not going to be a bad pickup. So I'm curious, would you guys ever want to pick up a used MacBook like the Air? Now, of course, for around the same money, you could get a new budget laptop, but there are going to be pros and cons on both sides. So let me know what you guys think, and if you want to see a comparison with this and some of our other budget laptops. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.